Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking the entire complex world of tourism and boiling it down into one simple story. It's everything you need to know to absolutely ace those exams.
All right, here's how we're going to do this. First, we'll look at the engine that actually powers all travel. Then, we'll meet the two kinds of people who are in the driver's seat. After that, we'll follow the life story of a tourist destination, see what happens when it gets too popular, and wrap up with how the rules of travel are changing right now. Okay, first things first. What even makes tourism possible in the first place? Well, it turns out it all boils down to three key things that have to work together perfectly. The best way to think about it is like a three-part engine. You've got to have the desire to go somewhere, the money and time to actually do it, and, a way to physically get there. If any one of those parts breaks, the whole machine just stops. So that first part, motivation, is basically your why. It's driven by what we call push factors, like needing a break from your boring routine, and pull factors, like the amazing attractions at a destination. So it could be something as simple as wanting to relax on a beach in Phuket, or as intense as wanting to push your limits and climb Mount Everest. Next up is ability. This is pretty straightforward. It's having the actual resources to make the trip happen. We're talking disposable income, enough leisure time off work, and of course, affordable travel. And honestly, the rise of budget airlines like AirAsia and platforms like Airbnb, total game changers. They blew the doors open for so many more people to travel. And the third piece of the puzzle is mobility. This is all about the physical infrastructure, the nuts and bolts, upgraded airports like Singapore's Changi, high-speed trains like Japan's Shinkansen, all the stuff that makes the journey smooth and possible. So here's the key takeaway. Motivation, ability, and mobility are a team. You need all three. Take one away, and your trip just isn't happening. You're staying home.
Okay, so we've got our engine running. But who's actually driving this thing? Well, it turns out there are basically two main types of tourists, and their personalities completely shape the places they go.
Yeah, not all tourists are cut from the same cloth. They exist on a spectrum. On one end, you have your dependables. These are folks who love predictability and comfort. And on the complete other end, you have the venturers, who are all about exploring the unknown. And you can see that difference so clearly right here. The dependables, they're heading for the structured resorts, the places that feel familiar and safe. But the venturers, they're looking for the exact opposite. They want that untouched nature, somewhere off the beaten path.
This little table really spells it out. Look, venturers spend more money, and they're the ones who really set the trends. They're the pioneers. The dependables, who are a much larger group, are more cautious. They wait for a place to be proven before they go. And that dynamic, that tension between these two groups, is absolutely crucial for what happens next. So what's so interesting about all this? Well, it's how these two types of travelers, the venturers and the dependables, actually write the life story of a tourist destination from beginning to end. See, every single tourist hotspot you can think of, whether it's Bali or, say, Blackpool, goes through a surprisingly predictable life cycle. It's like they're born, they grow up, they peak, and, well, they can even decay. It all starts really small. This is the exploration stage. A handful of those venturers we talked about discover a place. Think of somewhere like Jocko Island, where there are basically no tourist facilities at all. Then, slowly, the local community starts to see an opportunity and gets involved. And then, the boom happens. This is the development stage. Big money and big companies start to move in. Maybe a proper airport gets built. Before you know it, you're in the consolidation stage, where tourism is the main game in town. You get to a point, like in Goa, where the number of tourists can actually outnumber the locals. Okay, so let's put it all together. This is the engine that drives the whole life cycle. The venturers kick things off in the exploration phase. They create the buzz. That buzz attracts developers, who then build the hotels and attractions needed to bring in the real money, which comes from the massive market of dependables. And that's what pushes a destination towards its peak. But here's the catch. What happens when a place becomes too successful? Can there be too much of a good thing? Absolutely. It hits a wall. Hard. And that wall has a name. It's a key term you absolutely have to know. Carrying capacity. Think of it as the ultimate speed limit for any destination. The absolute maximum number of people a place can handle before things start to go wrong. I love this analogy.
Imagine the destination is sitting inside a delicate glass teacup. For a while, as tourists arrive, everything's fine. There's plenty of room. But as more and more and more people pour in, you finally exceed that carrying capacity. You hit the stagnation stage, and the glass begins to crack. The place gets overcrowded, the facilities get worn down. It just loses its original charm. A classic example is Waikiki back in the 90s. It literally became a victim of its own success. So once you're at stagnation, the destination is at a critical crossroads. It has a choice. It can either go into decline, where it just fades away and people stop coming, think of old rundown seaside towns, or it can attempt rejuvenation, a really expensive, difficult effort to completely rebrand and redevelop itself, which is exactly what a place like Blackpool is trying to do right now.
Okay, so for our last piece here, it's important to realize that this whole life cycle we've just talked about, it's being completely shaken up by some huge global trends.
Right now, there are basically 3 massive forces that are rewriting the rules of the game for every single destination on the planet. First, you have shifting demand. Tourists are getting savvier. They're avoiding overcrowded hotspots and looking for so-called second cities or really specific niche travel, like wellness retreats or sports tourism. Then there's shifting supply. You've got these small, specialist tour companies popping up, offering unique experiences that challenge the big, old-school package holiday companies. And finally, the big one, the digital revolution. Something like 70% of people now plan their trips online, which has completely changed how destinations are discovered and marketed. So that leaves us with one final big question. In a world that's more connected than ever, with travelers who are more demanding than ever, which destinations are going to be smart enough to adapt and thrive? And which ones are going to become the next generation's forgotten hotspots? Because in this ecosystem, that old story of discovery, boom, and bust, it's only going to get faster. The real question is, who can keep up?